and she's definitely like that cool girl, like just, and like I feel like I was trying to make fetch happen in 2021 and it just wasn't happening. I enjoyed the dynamic between the two women. I hesitate to say anything. I'm always like, which parts of this am I allowed to talk about? With Cackle, my voice cracked when I said Cackle. Hi everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse, and welcome to part 2 of everything I read in December. Now, I realize I've already put all my best of the year videos up, but I don't think any of these fell into that category, so we should be in good shape. But even if we did, it's all totally fine. But I'm very happy to say I ended the year on a high note. I've had a lot of really great reads this year, and if you missed part 1 of my December wrap up, I will link that for you guys. I tried to put that up before the end of the year so that you guys could get a sense of what I was reading. I wound up ending the year at 105 books, which is so far beyond what I thought I was going to read. I talked about this in my goals video where I realized I made a huge mistake in something that I said. So the huge mistake I said was that I was going to set my Goodreads goal for 52 books because I do that every year. I actually set my Goodreads goal for 75 books in 2021, but the year before that was 52. So I don't know what's going on. But the other thing I talked about in that goals video is how I did a horrible job tracking in the moment what I was reading. So I didn't have a very good concept of where I was at with my books until nearly the end of the year. So when I found out I was at 105, I was completely surprised. I did not see that coming. But I have so many great books to talk about. So let's talk about what I read in part 2 of December, the second half of the month. You know what I mean. The next book I have is The Girls Are All So Nice Here by Laurie Elizabeth Flynn. I'll be honest, you guys, I totally thought I talked about this in my first half and I just went back to double check and I totally didn't. But I've been talking about this book so much lately, I feel like I've already told you guys about it. I think because I talked about it in that vlog that I did. But this is the dark and messed up female friendship. It is very In My Dreams I Hold a Knife kind of vibes. It reminds me of In a Dark, Dark Wood, with those just messed up dynamics between the female friendships, the competition between them, the who you were in the past and who you are in the present. So in this one, we follow our main character, Ambrosia, and when she was a freshman in college, she became super, just, I don't want to say like obsessed, but fascinated with this girl, Sully. And Sloane Sullivan was just the it girl, the everything girl, sort of, you know, Sully stands still and the world revolves around her kind of a thing. But she is effortless and she is a magnet and people want to be around her and like girls want to be her friends and the guys just want to get with her. She's definitely like that cool girl vibe about her, and Am just wants to be like in her universe and be Sully's friend. And she becomes Sully's friend. And then 10 years later, they are coming back for their college reunion, which Ambrosia has no plans of going back to, but she gets a letter in the mail that basically has a bit of an I know what you did last summer kind of a vibe to it. And something that the girls did in the past is coming back to haunt them now, and someone wants to make them pay. So again, ding, 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 In My Dreams kind of vibes to it. And I loved the storytelling in this. I love the past and present timelines. I felt like that, also like in a very Megan Abbott kind of a way, that dynamic between the female friendships and that intensity that happens oftentimes in female friendships is so well portrayed. It's messy, it's dark, it is definitely unlikable characters, and I was completely here for the secrets and the lies and the twists and everything that was going on in this book. There's a great cast of characters in this, the other girls that are on their floor freshman year, and then in present day, Ambrosia's, I don't know if it's her boyfriend or her fiance, it's her husband. Get it right. So we have Ambrosia's husband who's coming up with her to this reunion. We have her best friend from when she was growing up who knows a lot about her history of when she went to school. And you really start to see as things unravel and as the stories that Ambrosia has built over time, both in her head and to other people. And I really just loved it so much. I thought it was so well done. I expected to like it. I didn't know I was going to love it as much as I did. This definitely hits a sweet spot of things that I love. The cover slapping in the breeze here. But it's those past and present. It's the college vibes. It's the female friendship vibes. But very much like when I read Cackle and a couple other books this year, I felt like there was some real relatability to it on admittedly very different levels. And it felt like a very honest experience of what it was like to be the Ambrosia in the situation. And you know, she's trying to sort of start over at college, and she wants to be viewed a certain way and wants to fit in a certain way, and she thinks she's doing all the right things. And I feel like that desire to be liked and to fit in, especially at that age, is really well portrayed in here. And I feel like it's, again, it's very relatable, and it felt authentic to me in the telling. So I really enjoyed this book so very much. I do have one of her YA books, which I'm going to plan to read, and then I'm hoping she does more adult, because I thought this book was just absolutely tremendous. So it hit all the right spots for me, and again, it's right there in my sweet spot, and I loved it. Next up is The Secret She Keeps by Michael Robotham. So when I was sort of having that itch for like the dark and messed up female friendships, I had pulled The Girls Are All So Nice Here, and I pulled this because I had heard both of them had that in spades. I wound up reading Girls Are All So Nice Here. And then after I finished that, I was trying to figure out what to read, and I was like, well, let me read this, because I pulled it off the shelf. And I have a few books by Michael Robotham, but this is the first one I actually have read. No judgment. And this is a standalone book, and it says, Megan doesn't know Agatha, but Agatha knows Megan. So this is about two women, and they are living sort of in and around London. And Megan is married, she's got 2 kids, she sort of has like the perfect husband, the perfect life, perfect. And then Agatha is a worker at the local supermarket, and Megan comes into that store, and she gets to know her, and she's a little bit enamored of her and of her life, and becomes a little bit fascinated by her. And they wind up meeting in an expectant mother group, and we see this friendship start to develop between the two of them. And I really enjoyed the dynamic between the two women. There's definitely some creep factor happening here. It's messy. There's some super darkness in this one as well. We get hints at the past, we get hints in the present, and I really liked it. I wasn't sure where it was going. I wasn't sure what was happening at first. And then as things started to be revealed, I was like, oh. So there's definite creepy vibes to this, but this is like my dark and messed up people kind of wheelhouse. So definitely a lot of tension in this, definitely a lot of questioning about what's going on here or what's going to happen next. I'm so glad I picked this up, because now I'm even more intrigued to read his other books that I have. And the other books I have, I want to say, are part of a series also, which has kind of been like my new love language this year. I'm back into them all. But this was nicely messed up. And I did a mix of audiobook and reading the book on this one as well. So I had sort of hit that point where I was only reading one book at a time. Oftentimes I'll have like 2 going and maybe like a nonfiction writing thing on the side. But I just wanted to be in this one story and in this one book. So if I was out for a walk or if I was doing other things, I would have the audiobook going as well. Audiobook was really good. Physical book was really good as well, and I definitely enjoyed it. My one little pet peeve, which happens often in book, I shouldn't say often, happens often enough that it annoys me, is there were 2 characters with super similar names, and I'm not going to be able to find it now. So Agatha is our main character, but then there was someone else she worked with that also had an A name, and it first happened when I was in the audiobook, and I was like, wait, did like the narrator just like mess up the name of the character? And I was like, no, there's just 2 people with A names. Like, there's so many names in the world. Can we maybe not have it be like Agatha and Andrea or whatever it was? But that is not a reason to not read the book or not like the book. But anytime that happens, like that's my number one pet peeve, is when character names are too similar. And it's either just done that way, or it's done that way like to confuse us on purpose. I don't like when authors do that, but I did like the book. The next book I have is Firekeepers Daughter by Angeline Bully. And I had started this at the end of November, and I was doing National Novel Writing Month, and I got maybe like 70 pages into the book at the time. I still have like this one little placeholder in here. I didn't get that far. Exactly 70 pages, check me out. But I was so focused on what I was writing that I could not give this book the attention that it demands and that it needs and that it deserves. So I wound up soft DNFing it and putting it down, which was ultimately absolutely the right choice for me. And I wound up picking it up sort of like mid-December, which was totally the right thing for me to do. And I very much enjoyed this book. This is another one I did a mix of audio and reading the book. The audiobook is really tremendous, and I would highly recommend the audio on this one. And I just very much enjoyed the story. It is YA-ish mystery, but romance, but family drama, but contemporary. Like there's so many things happening in this book. This is a debut, and I will say, let me just get my one like grief out of the way. It's so big, and I didn't think it needed to be this big. I think as much as there was so much story to this book, it's like almost 500 pages. There are parts that could have been tightened up because it just felt like a lot. And I understand what the author was trying to do by building out this community and building out this world. And it's grounded in modern day, it's not fantasy, but building out the world of our main characters. But I felt like I was so bogged down in it that it was hard for me to get going in the book to begin with. And we're also introduced to a lot of characters out of the gate, and I was having a hard time keeping everybody straight. But once I did get into it, and once I felt like the story was rolling, I was like moving along at a very good clip. But this one did take me a little bit of a hard time to get into, and I don't know if that was the book or if it's because I was so distracted with Nano. So I kind of go both ways on what could have been the cause of that. But ultimately, once I got rolling, I was in a really good place. So what's it about, you're asking? But at the same time, this book was everywhere this year, and it was like the #1 debut. So you probably already know what this is about. So in this book, we follow 18-year-old Donis, and this is where I feel like, so we meet her the summer after her senior year in high school. She's taking a gap year, but she really would be a freshman in college. So I feel like it's sort of like that new adult, but I don't even know if that's a category anymore. And I almost wish they had made her a senior in college and aged it up a little bit, because there was so much of this that felt adult, and not in a content kind of a way, but in a lot of the language of it or in things that were going on. But then there were parts that definitely felt like very young to me. So I feel like it straddled sort of a strange age where it was both aged down in some ways, but like aged up in other ways, if that makes any sense. But anyway, the story. So Donis has always sort of straddled two lives. So she's had her mother's family in her hometown there, and then her father's family on the Ojibwe reservation. So she's never quite fit into either world, but she has connections in both worlds, so to speak. And she was a star hockey player. Her father was a star hockey player. Hockey's a huge part of this, so Beartown, Beartown in some ways. And it's very much about her being at this point in her life where, again, the theme of a lot of the books I talked about that I loved this year, where she's feeling very untethered. So she was all set to go away to college, but then some family tragedy struck, and she's sticking around right now. And she is really trying to find her way and find sort of like her what next. And we get a lot of family going on here. It's a very interesting look at the experience of Native American women, the marginalization of Native American women. There is a beautiful afterword in this book that Angeline Bully writes that I highly recommend you read. I talked about this in another book. I know not everybody reads acknowledgments or afternotes or author's notes, but I always do and I love them. And I feel like in this case, it adds such a greater understanding. I talked about this with Holly Jackson in The Good Girl's Guide to Murder, the third book. It gives us like such a great understanding of where she was writing from, what she was trying to achieve in this book, what her experience was. And she talks about how something that actually happened to her in high school directly inspired a lot of a storyline in this book, which I thought was really interesting. But there's so many different levels of what happens in here. There's like a bit of FBI investigation about some drug issues that are going on. We have some romance that's happening here. Like I said, we have a lot of family dynamics. And we have this girl who is trying to figure out her place in life, in her two identities that she has. We have relationships with her friends, her half-brother, her aunt. And it is just so steeped in different traditions, which I found really interesting. It definitely was eye-opening and, like, dare I say, educational in some ways to me. And I feel like that sounds really naive, but I feel like I learned a lot from this book and learned a lot from the experience as it was portrayed for Donis and for her family. And I very much enjoyed it. I wish it had been a little tighter in the story. Like I said, I do feel like there were a lot of different things going on in here. And you definitely got sort of some dark and messed upness in like a YA kind of a way. There is a lot of secrets and lies and a lot of small town feel. People really know each other in this town. People are very intimate with each other in this town. Everybody knows everybody else's business in this town. And it's sort of hard to escape a lot of preconceived notions about yourself, about what people think of you, about what people think about your family. So I totally enjoyed it. Like I said, the audiobook was really good. I think this is the kind of book you could also do like a listen along, read along. So listen to the book and read it at the same time. And there's so much to get out of this book, but I really enjoyed it. I will be curious to see what she writes next, but definitely an impressive debut by far. The year of the debut, right, you guys? And there's just so many different levels to it. And I really enjoyed it. I really, really did. So I am glad I chose to put it down and pick it back up when I did, because like I said, I do not think I would have appreciated or picked up on so much of this book if I had tried to push through it at the time when the book wasn't right for me. But was glad that I was able to get to it when I did, and was glad I was able to finish it this year, because this was absolutely on my list of books I wanted to read in 2021, and I'm really happy that I did. So that's Firekeepers Daughter. The next book I listened to is Wise AF by Gary John Bishop, and this is simple truths to guide you through the shitstorms of life. So I have read his entire series. I very much enjoy him. He is like to the point, direct, straight shooter, quick, actionable advice. And I saw this pop up on my library app as a suggestion, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know he had another book out. So this was like an easy, quick read. It was like a little bit of a dose of kick in the butt. I listened to both of his books last year in December. So it was sort of that year end, trying to get into like the right mindset for clean slate, new year, just sort of setting myself up for success, as I keep on trying to do here. But I really enjoyed this one. So this talks about sort of specifically about what to do sort of when those different kind of storms hit us. So whether it is losing your job, he talks about heartbreak, he talks about grief and loss, but it's, you know, very much it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it, how you pick yourself up again. And while the entire book didn't completely relate to me or connect with me at this point in my life, there were definitely vignettes and snippets and advice that I pulled from this, and I took notes on it. And of course I didn't bring my notes with me as I sit here right now, but I'm looking at my own Goodreads review on it. But it's all about, you know, let me get my notes. Okay, I got my notes, so we can do this right. So the first quote I wrote down is, the only stuff you can't get over is the stuff you're holding on to. Is that necessarily something I haven't heard of before? No, but the way he said it and when he said it, I was like, oof, all right, you got me, you got me. So some of these are loose quotes, not direct quotes, but I have, fear is about the weight you tied to it. Coexist with it, find out how to live with it. It's the story you made up about it. Fear is subjective. Action is key, everything else is noise. So talking about success, he has, the surer path to success is when you do things differently, even though you feel the same. When you feel like shit, but still knock it out of the park. So this is very much, it's the action that matters, not how you feel. And I had mentioned this in another video where he talks about, it's not about writing when you feel like writing. It's not about working out when you feel like working out. It's not about doing the thing when you feel like doing the thing. It's about doing the thing when you don't feel like doing it. And that's the change, and that's sort of the difference. So you don't feel like working out, but you do it anyway. You don't feel like writing, but you do it anyway. So it's the things that you not necessarily force yourself to do, but you show up for even when you don't feel like showing up for it, because that's when it's hard, and like that's when the change happens. So it's not to say that change can't happen when things feel easy to you, but it's when you're doing the things you don't feel like doing that makes the difference. So he says, I'm much more fascinated by what's next than by what has been. So a lot about not looking backwards, you know, the forward is always the right direction theory of things. So as much as we are shaped by our past and have learned from our past, it's not the rear view mirror that we're focusing on, it's the what's next. So he says, challenge your perspective, keep your mind open and your commitment to change close by. So again, little vignettes, little moments, just little snippets of knowledge and wisdom that just sort of hit home with me. And I find that this is how I operate really in a self-help environment, is I can hear the same thing over and over again and it not resonate or not sit with me, but it will just take that one time and that one moment, the same way books are right for me at a certain time in my life. I feel like words hit you when you're open to them. And I do feel like, I talked about this in another video too, I was really trying to like force myself into a self-help mode and like do all the things and buy all the books, and like the end of last year and the beginning of this year. And nothing was sticking, and I was sort of like half-assing things, and I wasn't committing to it, and I was being very surface about it. And shocker to nobody, nothing really has changed, or anything. Like, changes I've made have not all been for the better. I've definitely gotten out of some of my good habits. So I did listen to Atomic Habits a few months ago, which I talked about, and I started to implement a couple things, and I was gonna go back to it and implement more, and I have not gone back to it yet. And I can blame, you know, Thanksgiving to New Year's is always just such a chaotic time, and things that are going on around me, but I really do wanna focus on making some changes, because I know what I'm doing now isn't working for me. And it's that definition of insomnia where I do feel like I'm hitting myself over the head with a hammer, and it's like expecting a different result, and I'm not getting a different result. So I need to put down the hammer. I need to pick up some good habits, and I just need to make a concerted effort. And I'm not trying to like upend my entire life or anything like that, but I feel like I spent so much of 2021 on the hamster wheel, and like, I feel like I was trying to make fetch happen in 2021, and it just wasn't happening, and I need to stop. So I need to just take a step back, take a breath, reevaluate certain things, and just come at it from a new direction. And, you know, you can't force certain things to happen, and sometimes it's just not the right time, and my foot is caught here, but sometimes it's not the right time for you. But I really enjoyed this book. What, again, I love about all of his books is they are quick, direct, to the point. I own some of them physically. They're books that I will continue to go back to and reference, and I just enjoy him. So yes, he curses up a storm, and he definitely is a big fan of the four-letter word, as you can tell by the title of his books. So if you enjoy that, or you can tolerate that, I guess I would say, I really recommend him, because he just gets to it. The books are quick, the audio is quick, and it's what I need. I don't need to get steeped in science. I don't need to know all these historical backgrounds. I don't need to know all the whys. Like, tell me what to do, and I'm here for it. So my last book of the year is The Island by Ragnar Jonasson, and this is book number 2 in the Dark Iceland series. This is continuing our time with Hulda, who we met in the darkness, and I loved this book, you guys. And I have The Mist, which is the 3rd and final book in the series, which I will be picking up soon, because I just need to know what's going to happen. But things I loved about this book. So in the darkness, we meet Hulda, and she's at the end of her career. So this trilogy is actually told in reverse. So the darkness is present day. This book is 1987, and then we do a 10-year time jump to 1997. And we have a mystery in 87 and a mystery in 97 that are trying to be solved. And what I love about how he wrote this book is, as much as this is a sequel, and we do get Hulda in this book, and we do get her eventually investigating a crime, the whole first part of this book is really the crime that happens in the present day, and we get little sprinkles of Hulda, and then when she winds up sort of catching the case, then we get more of her. So I really liked that. So it wasn't her investigating a murder from the beginning, her investigating a crime from the beginning, like her trying to solve something from the get-go. And I thought that was very, very smart. So we are introduced to this group of friends who were friends when they were younger, and they have a bit of a reunion, and they go to this isolated island. And it is one of those cases of one of the people does not make it through the weekend. And we start to see the dynamic between this friend group. There is something that has happened to them in the past. And when we get to the point where somebody is not going to make it off the island alive, and Hulda winds up getting called in, then we trigger a police investigation. So I very much liked how this book was done. I thought it was really smart. I really loved how we know things about Hulda in the darkness, and we start to see like the groundwork of it being laid in this book, and then we see how things turn out in the darkness. So such an interesting take, because I feel like I can't think of any other series I've read, and I don't know if there's another one out there, so please correct me if there is, where it's done in reverse. So you know where she is, where she's like just shy of her retirement, she's getting pushed out early in the darkness, and she makes references to things that have happened in her career and in her life. And in here, we're seeing some of it in real time. We're seeing all of those building blocks that wind up, you know, coming to be in the last book. I don't know how else to describe it, but very smart, very well done. I have no idea what the timeline is for The Mist, but I'm excited to read it. But this book was really smart. I really enjoyed the mystery of this one. I don't know if I would say, I almost feel like I liked the mystery of this one more, just that isolated vibe, very Agatha Christie-ish in that way. And it's just like a trope buzzword for me. I like that isolation mystery, but what a like banner way to end 2021. So that's gonna do it for the second half of December, and that's gonna do it for my final wrap up of 2021 books. Such a good year, you guys. I'm so happy I read all these books. I'm so happy I ended on such a high note. I feel like there's so much pressure for like that last book of the year. And I was having conversations with my friends about it where like some people won't start a new book on the 31st, some people wait till the new year. And I kind of suspected I was really gonna love The Island, but there was a part of me where I was like, if this book doesn't crush it for me, I'm gonna need to power read something on the 31st so that I can end my year on a high note. But happily I did. And I did start reading Find Me by Alifair Burke on the 31st. I have the arc of her latest book, which comes out early in January. So I am right about halfway done with that one right now. I will let you guys know, but I'm loving it so far. So it was sort of like the perfect book to end 2021 and start 2022 with an author that I love, two pieces. So I will keep you guys posted on that one. But until then, I hope you guys are doing well. Take care, everyone. Thanks for hanging out today, watching the video. Let me know what you read in December that you loved. Let me know if you had any letdowns. Let me know if you ended your year on a reading high. And I will talk to you guys really soon. Bye, everybody.